Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Bootstrapping 101, Building a Lean Startup. Before we get started, I wanted to thank our sponsors, P&G Ventures, Kroger, First Financial, North American Properties, Bora Ventures, Taft, and KMK. This would not be possible without them. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions. A recorded version of today's webinar will be provided. Please continue to fill out the survey at the end of your webinar. We have been getting lots of feedback that's really valuable to us. It only takes less than a minute, so please continue to fill that out. Thank you all so much for attending. I'm going to hand it off to Pete Blackshaw to intro our speakers today.
Hi, everyone. Zaina, can you hear me okay?
Perfect, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, I'm absolutely thrilled to kick this one off. First off, I'm so thrilled all of you have been active in the program. We have, this is our kind of first test and couldn't be happier with the results, and we're gonna probably try to scale this. And we'll have a discussion later on where I can gather your feedback. But I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce Mahendra and Anu. Both are huge inspirations, and I owe so much to Mahendra for so much of what I've learned about startup culture, about all the themes that you're gonna hear about in this session. And even, quite frankly, I owe both of them a debt of gratitude for inspiring this program, because they invited me to a program that they had developed, which was really one of the very earliest, kind of youth training entrepreneurial programs. It just blew me away, and I couldn't believe what the students had come up with. And a lot of it is because, Bora Ventures is, I think, the heart and soul of entrepreneurial culture in Greater Cincinnati, and they're making a big name globally. And Mahendra and I put two companies together in uncertain times against a really big market opportunity, and we somehow made it work, and we had ups and downs. And I always came to appreciate the tenacity, the resourcefulness, the smarts, the strategic acumen, and this, I sometimes would joke with them about kind of a chew through leather mindset, because when you're doing a startup, things never evolve as you anticipate. But if you nurture the few customers that you have and maintain a certain degree of flexibility and agility on your team, even protect a few side projects on the side that could become your big projects, you'll be successful. And there's just nobody who I think has weathered the storm and done that better than Mahendra. And I think Anu is following in his footsteps and probably will leave an even bigger mark at some point. Don't take that as offense, Mahendra. But again, I just wanted to kind of frame them. I just, soak this in. This is one of the sessions where you probably won't absorb everything. It'll be like, you may want to watch it again or listen to it while you exercise. But I think you're in for just a really good infusion of startup DNA. And so without further ado, it's my honor to introduce my friends Mahendra and Anu to the Entrepreneurs Change the World program. I pass it on.
Thank you so much, Pete. That was such a warm introduction. We really appreciate it. We're so excited to started the 0 to 60 program. And we've been investing, my dad has paved the way for me to invest in high school talent and high school entrepreneurship programs. He actually, brought me into Inner Alliance when I was in high school, and it was a really big part of my, journey into becoming a tech entrepreneur. And so we're really excited to talk to you about what we're doing. Again, thanks to all the sponsors that make this program possible. And the topic today is bootstrapping and building a lean startup. We're really excited to explain my dad's methodologies and talk a little bit about how we do things at Bora Ventures. So a bit about us. Do you want to go ahead and talk about your background?
Yeah, first of all, I thank you, Pete. Pete, as much credit as you give to me and as much support that you give to entrepreneurs like Anu, We are incredibly lucky to have someone like you leading our community, changing, you make every day, you make a change, you make an improvement. That's how you change the world. And, Gandhi said, be the change you want to be the change you want to make. And Pete is incredible. I work with Pete in very difficult situations. Pete has always been 10, 15, 20 years ahead. Many times we couldn't connect the dots from what Pete was thinking. And then Pete and I made a phenomenal, very complementary, difficult at times, a pair to work with, because I was focused on how do we survive, and Pete wanted to say, how do we grow? How do we change this world? How do you think bigger than Google? How do you think bigger than anybody with no boundaries? And it was a perfect combination. If you're bootstrapping, if you have one Mahendra or one Anu, and if you get one Pete, then no one can stop you. So my background is my my resume doesn't really talk about how I operate every day. Uh, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. I change faster than you can imagine. Whatever we need to do, let's move. Speed, quality with speed is one of my key mantras, and I've done that. I came here for education to do my PhD in computer science, just like every academic Indian tech software IT guy. I got into PhD program at Michigan, uh, and pretty soon I realized I did get my master's, even the second master's I was working on. I soon realized that this is not me. I'm not going to spend next 4 years trying to improve this one algorithm that next 30, 40 years somebody may or may not use. Now, please understand the value of research, value of PhDs, unbelievable, but that was not me. And knowing every single day, knowing what you are and what drives you, what makes you who you are, uh, is really, really defines success. And authenticity and decency are two key ingredients in my belief, no matter what you do, whether it's entrepreneurship or you go for a professional career or whatever. So I quit. I started my first company. I came to Cincinnati, met with three Americans, Kevin, Bill, and Larry. They needed an Indian because there was a trend was just starting to you got to have one Indian in a tech startup. So they gave me 2%, and I was like thrilled. 2% equity with three American guys. I was telling my family in India, you have no idea how good I'm doing. We started that company in 1987 or so, near in Montgomery, Blue Ash area. In 5 years, we built that company to 250 employees. We sold that company for $25 million. Now, $25 million in 1992, trust me, looks, sounds like, $1 billion. I got my first $400,000, $500,000 check. I'm like, I didn't know what to do with it. It looked like miles long check. So after tax, I got $361,000, but I had to save something for my one daughter at then, not Anu, but my older daughter. And I had to save something, so I saved $1,000 for her future, and I reinvested $360,000 into my next patent, my next idea. Built Bootstrapped. Number two, started writing the algorithms for the various databases to do a distributed join, and no VC, no outside funding, because this time I didn't want to own 2%. This time I wanted to own majority of it. Very difficult path, and focus on customer. And I realized early on, that's all you do. You focus on your customer. Build that company, another 4 or 5 years, sold it to Unisys Corporation for $10 million in 97. Had a partner, I owned a majority, got some money. And now I'm just like early 32 years old. I had 2 startups and some money to take a risk and to do what I wanted to do. I'm like, this is awesome. I can make mistakes. I can actually carry out my vision. And so that's how I started. After that, I started 2 or 3 companies, 4 companies. with venture capital money, because that was the path we knew, something that Pete taught me, as he was, and he is probably 100 times better than I was in raising tremendous amount of capital. We did that. We built those companies, sold those companies, learned my lesson. We'll talk about that later on. And then in 2006, I said, I can't even do this. I cannot do venture-backed companies. I have to control my destiny. And I have to help other entrepreneurs who are like me. I have to help my next generation of kids who don't have the resources I didn't have. And so then I started Vora Ventures. And then now we have multiple companies in that. And I'm fortunate that I have my own daughter interested in taking what I've done, learning from the mistakes I made, and taking us to the next stage. So I'll just hand over to Anu.
I'm like the biggest fan of my dad, and I think it's really something to be grateful for when a career you're pursuing, your mentor and the person that you look up to, your role model, is your own parent. And especially with his immigrant journey, I think this quote that someone I follow on Twitter who I really appreciate posted this, and I think about it almost every day, is that my parent were tasked with the job of survival and I with self-actualization. The immigrant generational gap is real. What a luxury it is to search for purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. So my dad was a survivor. He built, came to this country with how many, like $300 in your pocket?
$312.
And like truly that's what he came to this country with. It didn't take a penny from his family. PhDs you get a stipend, so he didn't need any money for his education. And his first job was like $27,000 after his PhD, after he dropped out.
17,000.
Sorry, 17,000. Oh my gosh. So he built from that to Vora Ventures, which is several portfolio companies, some minority investments, and growing. And so my journey growing up in Cincinnati, as second gen Indian American kid, up close, I didn't appreciate as a kid all the resources at my disposal. I was like, everyone around me is hustling and doing things on their own. I want to do things without any help from anybody. I don't want to take advantage of this golden opportunity, because all of my other role models outside of this home have built from the ground up. And so through high school, I did Inter-Alliance. I got my own internships. Through college at Michigan, I never took a favor from my dad, never had him call one of his buddies at XYZ big tech company. I was like, I'm going to do it absolutely on my own. And once I graduated and started working on my own startup, Admit Ally, which is an ed tech company, and I didn't take any help from my family then either, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so difficult to bootstrap. And I really had this moment of reflection where I was thinking, should I be doing this? Like, is this honoring my father and his father and like my ancestors? Like, I have so much access. Should I really be turning it all down to prove a point, and to whom, right? So after I started building my startup the hard way, which I learned so much for and I would never take it back, so much from, and I would never take it back. But I, after that, about a year ago, decided that, I love everything that my dad is working on, and I really want to be a part of it, and took a more formal role with Vora Ventures. And now I work on incubating really exciting startups, and also investing in the types of founders that we want to give an opportunity to. And I think it's really beautiful to be able to give back. My generation can give back because his generation built everything. So that's my story. So what we're talking about today, I think I have some perspectives to share, but I think it would be really valuable if I kind of interviewed my dad for the next 10 or so minutes, and then we can 15 minutes and we'll get into Q&A. So I'm going to ask him some questions that I think you'll derive a lot of value out of. And we can go through kind of some key questions, but really the heart of what we're going to talk about today is, how do you start that first company? And how do you serve your customers, your employees, and then yourself, and in that order, right? So, let's get into it. These are the topics we're going to discuss. Why don't you talk about what does bootstrapping mean? What's VC? What are these terms? What's better to do depending on, your platform?
Bootstrapping, thank you. Bootstrapping literally means, pulling yourself by the bootstraps. And bootstrapping means, basically founders who are technical, founders who want to solve a specific problem, and they are willing to invest their own personal resources. That doesn't mean you don't take help from VCs. That doesn't mean you don't take help from other people. But bootstrapping is really starting with your own idea. And my humble advice is that starting companies, because this guy started a company and I know about him, and then 1 or 2 years he found some investment and then flipped and he sold and he made $5 million. This girl who did this and she had this idea and she got some money from San Francisco or VC, and then that's not typically the most successful entrepreneurs. That's not how they start companies. They start company because they believe in something. They believe in the pain. They believe, because I can tell you in this, the company that I had invested in, a young kid who was second year in college, whose mother got into hospital, and they had pathetic system to keep the family informed. They had no idea what's happening. They were not making informed decisions. They didn't have the resources. They didn't know where they can get money from. And so this guy says, I'm going to build a software. I'm going to build a system that helps many other people solve this problem. That's real passion. Whether that problem is, you have to have the first-hand pain, understanding of the pain. If you do that, you have two ways to do it. You can just start a company and do the hard way, like I did, and say, I'm going to build with my own resources, because I have gone through the venture-backed companies and I am not willing to give huge portion of my company to somebody, some Ivy League, some MBA, who's going to come on my board and tell me exactly what to do, who has never really sold anything, who has never really built anything. And trust me, I'm not here to talk about VC being a bad route. I'm just trying to explain the difference between bootstrapping with your own resources, bootstrapping with just your own idea, taking it to just this much, and then find some resources, friends, family, angels, people who believe in you, then move to the next stage, and get professional venture capital and grow that way. That's one path. Some people take the idea on day one, so good at raising money. They raise tremendous amount of money just right at the onset. And there are people like me who believe that we have to build the product, we have to create the value, we have to get the first few customers before I take anybody else's money. Because I have issue. And I'll tell you that, for example, 90 to 93% of the startups, high-tech startups, go out of business in the first 7 years. In my 25 years of 20 plus startups, not a single investor has ever lost. True, because of that, probably none of them became huge success, because we didn't take as much capital. And I know you're very young. I know these concepts, I don't know what they mean to you yet, but if you listen to them, if you read about them, if you think about different approaches, it will make sense to you. So
I think like a reductive way that I've thought about this, because a lot of my friends from college have gone on to raise a lot of venture capital money. The way that I think about this is, are you trying to fail really fast, or are you trying to succeed, albeit a bit slowly? I think when you're bootstrapping, it's a longer path. Like for when I was building Admit Ally, initially it was a B2C model, so business to consumer. We're selling directly to individuals. Then we switched to a B2B model, so we're selling to businesses, and the business was we were selling to colleges. So for that business, you have to find one big ticket customer that helps infuse enough money into the company to then chase the next 10 customers, right? And I think that's the heart of bootstrapping, is you have to start with that one customer who you deliver so much value for that they end up being your champion and helping you scale the business. That's a bit of a slower path, and that's because you can't put $10 million into marketing your startup, because you're building it literally with what you're getting from the other side.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it is about just about whether you have money to build 10 million. I think focusing on a customer helps you in every way, whether you want to raise money, not raise money, with making sure that some customer who is credible and you are solving their problem in earnest, and they're willing to stand by you and say, these company, these guy, this girl, this leader is actually solving my problem. And I have looked at everywhere else, and these guys really solve my problem. That's value. That value is in millions. That gives you option to raise money, not raise money. But most important thing that people forget, in many companies, many startups, especially on the West Coast, they believe that money is the solution to all problems. I honestly, as a bootstrapping entrepreneur, I'm telling you, customer, good product, understanding of the product, truly adding value to somebody, solving some real problem, has value that's beyond. Now, once you get a few customers, you need to scale. You need to build a team. You need to market. You need to let the rest of the world know that these 3 or 4 customers are great. For that, you have options. And for that, you need money. And there are multiple options available at that point.
But how do you get that first customer? How do you make that pitch when you don't have your product market fit proven? You might not even have like a minimum viable product. You might not even have a prototype. You're trying to get someone to partner with you and believe in you. How do you get that?
That's interesting. You know, a lot of people believe that if I don't have a perfect product, I cannot get a customer. And the funny thing is that most people, common, average people, I call them, I'm sorry, they try to meet customer demands. When you try to meet customer demands, you're always chasing. You're chasing the incumbents. You're chasing the process of how long it takes to understand customer demands. But I think what customers like is showing them a vision. You have to agree with them on a problem, but then you tell them that there is a better, different way of solving the problem. So I believe the best products in the world are built with about 60% of the product is built understanding the market or customer need. You build it, you share with the customer, potential customer, prospect, and you work with them to finish the last 30, 40%. They are fully vested in you. Now they are, they're your partners. So getting the customers is about your ability to articulate in earnest, not just BS talk or just some, impressive vision sharing. It's about really finding people, understanding who can I share that this is a problem. Is this a problem? Listen to them, share your vision, tell them that you are addressing 60, 70, 80% of their needs, but also tell them you're doing some things that are beyond their needs. So I think, the art, to me, entrepreneur who cannot sell to the first 2 or 3 customers cannot sell to millions, cannot build a team. And if you think that every solution is about getting a strong salesperson, that's not. Of course, you need a great team. But if you don't know how to do it yourself, and that's the power of a great bootstrap company.
Do you think that there's certain types of businesses that are more suited to being bootstrapped? Like,
that's correct.
For example, our portfolio is largely
B2B.
Yeah, exactly. And so that means that we're getting bigger ticket customers, like enterprise customers, like big names in town, Kroger, P&G, et cetera. And so it's easier once you make that one big sale to say, wow, we've really proven out a whole business. We can grow this.
Absolutely. A B2B, a business to business. When you have a product that is solving the problems of a business, you're selling to another business, that's that's where everything I just said was possible. When you're selling to consumers, you're building a product that's going to help, all the millennials or high school students or millions of people. You can't get one or two customers, but you still need a small critical mass of diverse composition, so that you are represented by 3 or 4 or 5 different communities. You need that 20, 25, 30 consumers maybe to be your champions. Anybody who believes that I can build a product sitting in the 4 walls because I know exactly what to build, I can tell you from my experience, they are off. They need partnership from people who are outside their company to help them. And that requires humility, listening, personal connection.
Do you think that it's, having built a bootstrap business and having watched you, my whole childhood building these companies and working 18-hour days, how did you stay motivated? Because I think when you're bootstrapping, you also have to remember you don't have the money, you don't have the VC capital to hire an army, right? You're really going at it with a very small team, or you're going at it alone. And it takes a while to see if your hypothesis really proved itself out. So how did you stay motivated?
There are only 3 things that keep you motivated in life, no matter what the circumstances are. In fact, if you listen to all the leaders, in fact, more successful people who defy odds, people who don't give up, people who believe that winners never quit and quitters never win. It's 3 things: attitude, need, and a cause. If you have the attitude to say, I'm not going to fail, I can succeed. If you have a need, that you need it, necessity is mother of all invention. I had to be successful. I came to this country with huge dreams from my father, and I had no choice but to be successful, to prove to my parents, to my family who believed in me, and to create a bit of a legacy in a country that I just came as an immigrant. And the third is a cause. If you believe in the cause, if you're helping patients with, cancer, if you're helping people who don't have financial aid, if you're helping people who are discriminated. So if you believe in a cause, if you have a need, and if you have the attitude, honestly, stay motivated. It's not even a question. The thought doesn't come. Only problem is only 18 hours I can work with. And that's what keeps you going.
I also think that, in your experience, when you start an idea, you have an ideal customer in mind. You have that first customer in mind, and you build almost for that customer. You get them on as a partner, you get them to sign an LOI, letter of intent, and then you build the company with them. So there's a partner that is representing the customer voice. How do you get them to build that product with you? And sometimes we even get the customer to help pay for that product development. So how do you get them to partner with you in a way that allows you to build for the next guy?
That's called an art, right? I mean, this is, and again, I hate to say this, but this is not an Ivy League or any MBA is going to necessarily teach you. It's about personal connection. If you listen to Simon Sinek, right? It says power of why. Most people focus on features and functions of products, where focusing on why, which is the root of the problem. Is it a vitamin or is it a painkiller? So many software and startups fail because they build vitamins that people don't really need, but they push them so hard that this is what you need, this is what you need, and it finally doesn't work. So I think really understanding your potential. First of all, you need to have access. That's why you need people like Pete, people like Mahendra, mentors, people who are willing to help you. Because if you don't have anybody listening to you, whether it's Kroger or P&G or whichever company, then you don't even have an opportunity. So yes, you need network, and it's a successive process. So first, you need to be connected with the right people who are willing to help you, people who believe that helping our next generation is part of my cause. So once you get an opportunity, now it's yours to lose. And that's where you focus on just simple messages, 2 or 3 simple messages, and then you listen. And Simon Sinek says, people who believe in what you believe in People buy from people who believe in what you believe in. Establishing a common belief. And I think that's what a differentiation between a true entrepreneur. In fact, when we look at funding companies, I look at the entrepreneur, and honestly, there are some of them are 16-year-old. I can give you an example of a guy that worked on an internship with us, and he went to, I believe, Japan or China after that, went to Harvard. I mean, he sold me in first 10 minutes. Was 16-year-old high school kid, was a freshman. He says, how he wants to really change the world. And there was a lot of conviction. So I think that's the art. And for that, you have to believe in what you believe in. To me, there is no other way to sell except selling yourself, selling your personal vision and passion. And most people buy it. Most people will give you an opportunity if you're authentic and decent.
And how do you find that opportunity, that for like as a founder, right? How do you develop expertise in something to then go and solve that problem in a very meaningful and tangible way for your customer? Like when you started, how did you develop that expertise?
Well, there are only two ways to really, it's about access, right? There are only two ways to find someone to listen to you. So one is that you associate yourself with people who have contacts, who have network. You make them your partner, you make them their advisor. When I teach a fundraising course, I always tell people that if you go to somebody and ask for money, you typically get only advice. If you ask for money, you will only get advice. So if you want money, just ask for advice. And it always works. You go to somebody and genuinely ask for advice, whether it's Pete, whether it's Mahendra, whether it's somebody that your mom knows who works at P&G, whether somebody who is a senior executive at Google, doesn't matter. You have to either know people who know people, or you have to have experience where you had worked in an industry for 5 or 10 years, right? You work for Kroger for 5 years, you know firsthand what the problems are, and you go out to start a company. There are only two ways to really have a feeling.
I actually would add a third way. I think if you're young and you can take risk, like for example, with me, I started with a really, really, really simple idea. How do you get, set a timer to make sure we can get to questions. How do you make sure that a high school student can get advice from current undergrads at the schools they're applying to? Really like basic idea, right? And in building that, I actually developed expertise. So I didn't, and maybe it's because I had the privilege of really like moving home and like building my own startup. Maybe that's why I was able to think like this. But I didn't have to go and work 5 or 10 years in an industry to develop expertise, like, getting a job from somebody else. I made my job, and I created a role for myself to solve a problem where I was like, I was seeing college students go on to careers that they were really dispassionate about. And I think the problem starts really early in that you're sold on the wrong major or the wrong college. And I'm like, why don't we start with high schoolers and help develop that clarity? And in solving that problem for people, I actually uncovered a whole bunch of issues in the higher ed industry at large, and was able to work with colleges to solve a very specific problem as an expert after 2 years of like struggling in my own startup. So I think there is a third way, but it's much grittier in that like you probably can't take a salary, like you probably have to live with your parents, you probably have to build a really scrappy MVP and sell people on it. And it's gonna take a while, like it's gonna take 2, 3, 5 years of trying to build something and using your startup as a vehicle to develop expertise.
I guess I'll agree to the third one because you have proven, and I also believe that a lot of kids get advice, and a lot of people get advice that follow the path. Go get experience for 5 years at this company, then go and do this for 5 years, and then while there is value in experience, learning, obviously, there's tremendous value. All I can tell you is start early. Start early. Cut down the cycle. Live like you're going to live 65 years and you want to change the world. Don't live like you're going to live 150 years and change the world. Have a sense of urgency without desperation. That's such a powerful thing. I want it. I want to do it right. I don't want to cut the corners, but I don't have all the time in the world. So how do we get there? That attitude an entrepreneur has. This perfect balance of impatience with understanding of some things do take time. That's what I think gives you a balance of how much can you learn, how much you do it without necessarily knowing enough, and just get started. So let's go with some questions, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, some takeaways, I guess, from all the different concepts that we've touched on, I think are when you're thinking about bootstrapping and like really what does that mean, starting something from scratch by yourself. I think you have to fail fast or you have to succeed really, really slowly. And you have to be willing to go on that journey.
There is a second option. If you can get somebody to believe in your story and raise millions of dollars, okay, there is nothing wrong with it. But let me tell you, only 1 out of 10,000 people actually are successful in doing it. Okay, if you cannot do that, which is, or for any reason, because of the region we are in, because of the available capital, because whatever, then the second option is succeed slowly or fail fast, because value of life is important. So succeed slowly means I may not take a lot of money, I may not grow super fast, but I'm going to control my destiny. I'm going to focus on my customer. I'm going to focus on revenue. I'm going to build my business like it's going to last, not just that I'm going to flip it and sell it to somebody. That's succeed slowly, but sustainable manner. Or know that this is not working and fail fast so that you have 2 or 3 or 5 other opportunities to make up, because we only have X number of years. And it's not one project or one failed startup that's failed that defines anyone. It's really the portfolio is ultimate success. Most successful entrepreneurs actually have failed 1, 2, 3 times. And that's really the character building aspect. So do not worry too much. Worry too much if you're taking too long to decide are you succeeding or failing. And that's the takeaway. Depend on yourself. Ultimately, money, no money, VC, it's you. It's you that you can depend on. Let's go with that.
Awesome. Well, we'll take some questions. I think we've gotten a few here. All right. How do you overcome challenges that seem insurmountable when you don't have the money, team, mentors to start your business?
That's almost like you know a lot about my life. Seriously, I have been in that situation so many times. And I can tell you, first of all, hope is not a strategy, but hope is essential. I can tell you that there is always a solution. There's always a path. You just have to look for it. It will come. You have to believe in that. Okay? Creativity is an amazing thing. You find a solution. There is not a problem that you absolutely, whether you go back, you go to a conference and just sit there. You find people. And I have done that. I have worked with people to say, I don't have money to pay you, but I need your help. And you would think most people will say, no, but you can find a solution to help. You can find ways to pay that's in equity. You can find ways to pay that's future. You can, so usually there are only 2 problems in business. I don't have money to spend, and I don't have sales to pay for my expenses. There are really only 2 fundamental problems. Nobody's buying my product, or I'm not selling, or I want to do all these things before I can sell, but I don't have money. And I cannot give you one generalized solution. There is no magic wand. But I can tell you that there exists to be a solution. Don't take no. The greatest entrepreneurs in the world do not take no. Almost to craziness level.
I would also add that I think some tactics that I've used and I've watched you use when you, like, there's a gigantic issue, and you have to make payroll, or you have to close a customer that you have been talking to for 6 months, 8 months, that you're trying to finally, secure a deal with. I think you have to take 5 steps back and really understand the root of the issue. Is it an issue that really even exists, right? Or is it self-created? I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we get conflated between the two. But take that step back and really understand, what can I do right now with what I have, instead of focusing on what don't I have and what can't I do because I don't have those things.
Yeah, in a startup world, there is a very famous, there is a very interesting metaphor to say, I need breakfast money because so I can survive till lunch. In a bootstrapping companies, this is common. You need breakfast money. You need resources to last till lunch, and then you will get lunch money. And then once you get lunch money, I'll think about dinner. Okay. Now that's very hard struggle. That's very difficult way of doing it. But that's what most people are not blessed with millions of dollars and access to money. And we have to look at that as an option, as how are we going to build our companies. If you get lucky, that's great. But if not, you have to survive regardless.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions that people want to submit we can get into? Or anyone want to chime in?
We have 2 more questions in the Q&A tool, if you see those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can read them.
Thanks. In preparing for the pitch competition in a couple weeks, what would you recommend are the most important areas to focus on in both preparing and during the presentation? I think preparing for the presentation, really figure out what you want the audience to take away from the conversation, and what you want them to tell a friend about. That's how I really think about a lot of presentations, is what's that tidbit someone's going to walk away with, and spread that message. And during the presentation, keep it really simple, keep it really casual. Don't inundate your slides with tons of information and bombard the audience or the judges. Make sure they can get that tidbit of information that you're trying to spread.
Oh, and one thing, the biggest deals that I have done in my life, and I will share this with you. I've been one piece of paper, one napkin, one slide, one table in Excel. You have to be able to communicate your message. There are 3 things that are important when you make a pitch. Why the solution? Why? What's the problem? Why? Why do people need your solution? Identify why the solution. Second one is why now? Why do they need today? And third one is why from you? What's different about you? What's unique about your solution? So why? What's the problem? Why now? And why you? And if you focus on those 3, your audience will not forget. And you can do that in one slide if you want. You can have supporting data, but don't get cute. People get cute in presentations. People prepare so much about presentations and they miss the crux. And I can tell you that the greatest presentations are done with a pen and a board. And people remember that. In fact, many times I used to have great PowerPoint slides and I trashed them and I would redo this on the board, even though I had done the same slides, and people retain that so much more. It's about you, how you communicate.
And I would say maybe that gets at the heart of clarity. Do you know why you're presenting? Do you actually have a clear answer to the question, what can this audience member, what can this judge do for you? What can you do for them, more like? And if you have a clear answer in your head, it's not difficult to exude that clarity. Awesome. And then the last question that I see here is, I can share more information about Admit Ally, happy to. Admit Ally is a video chat platform that helps high school students meet with current undergrads. So if you're applying to UC and you don't know anybody there, or you're applying to Harvard and you're like, am I good enough? I think it's really important to have mentors that you can access and talk to. And part of our sponsorship with Centrifuge and our commitment to the community here is every student can get a free Admit Ally call. And so I'm happy to share information about that and how to redeem it. But essentially, without talking to someone who's walking the path that you're considering walking on, I think it's really difficult to make a judgment about whether or not that's the right fit for you. And for any students that are thinking about college applications, I know Common App is opening in a couple weeks. I would really urge you to think about, why does this school deserve you? Not are you deserving of being a representative for the school. I think kids often really focus on feeling like they're not good enough, when in reality, so many colleges would be very lucky to have you among their student body, but it's about you doing the due diligence to understand what's the right campus fit for me and where am I going to flourish as much as possible. I feel really grateful that I made the right call for myself when I chose a college. And I think I don't know what would happen if I had gone to a different school, but having gone to Michigan, I feel like it set the stage. And it's hard to imagine that another school could have that impact. So that's everything from our end.
I have a quick question for you, both. Who's someone that inspires you, or just someone that you pull inspiration from? Because I know you had lots of references throughout, like to TED Talks and different sources, but I was just wondering, who do you guys look up to?
It's gonna be, my answer is kind of cheesy. I look up to my dad. I have every opportunity because of what he did. So I think it's like really up close. Like I have other answers, like I really look up to, like Pyle Kadakio founded ClassPass, or like other really incredible founders, but I don't know them up close. And what I do know about my dad is that I watched him build everything that we're talking about from absolutely nothing. He didn't have a parent like him. Like he didn't have someone to go to for advice. He didn't have, access to capital if he wanted to build an idea out. He didn't have the connections to help, facilitate his growth. So I feel like it's really remarkable to be able to do that without any backing and without any support. Having moved to a country, learning the language, I mean, all those things are just far beyond the struggles that I will ever have to endure. And I think that that's a really great thing. So thanks.
For me, I'm an entrepreneur from late 80s, mid 80s. For me, it's Bill Gates. And I know we are all, we talk about Zuckerberg and we talk about Sergey Brin, Larry Page, and, all this crazy success that we are seeing today. But Bill Gates, to me, has been the balance that I want to be. It's not the extreme of Steve Jobs. It's not the extreme of Zuckerberg's. It's the balance. It's balance of family, balance of community, balance of success. And he didn't take a shortcut to success. He was extremely successful, but he did it the right way at the right time, give it back the right way. And to me, he has had tremendous impact on building the innovation economy. That's and the second motivation is my father, who gave his life to others. And he didn't start making a difference until he was successful. So my father was on the other extreme in terms of resources to Bill Gates. But they both practiced giving back early on as they became successful in their own relevant circles. So to me, those are the people. And then, you change these mentors, honestly. In many ways, Pete has motivated me and inspired me in certain areas. In certain areas, a friend called Sundar has inspired me. So I think you constantly, it's not one mentor or one motivator, one person inspires. You find people to inspire you in different aspects of life so that you can constantly become better and better.
Thank you both. I definitely agree on Bill Gates 100%. And what you were talking about, Anu, like I have parents that are immigrants as well, and that's already like such a huge, like so inspiring almost. I can't even imagine doing that. And the fact that you came here and are an entrepreneur is just extremely, just so cool. But we are running low on time here. I'm going to end a few minutes early because we have an event right after this. So I'm going to close us out here. Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much, Anu and Mahendra. You guys are both amazing speakers, and I loved hearing your advice and about your background, as well as the passion and drive you guys both exude. I loved the Q&A format of the presentation. It was so easy to follow and helped break down an unfamiliar concept. The recorded version of this session will be available soon. Students, we love hearing your feedback. Please fill out that survey that pops up once you leave the meeting. It takes less than a minute and your feedback is very valuable to us. At this time, after filling out your survey, please switch over to the Zoom meeting link for Pete's webinar about contactless experiences. You can find this link in the GroupMe message, your email, or the summer program calendar, and I will drop it in the chat on this webinar as well. Don't miss the chance to hear from and interact with our Centrifuge CEO about a topic that is so relevant to the world we are living in today. Pete is an amazing speaker and one of the most inspirational people I've ever met. I'm so excited to see you all there in a few minutes. Thank you again, Anu and Mahendra.
Thank you and Pete for Centrifuge.
This was such a fun activity. My dad and I have never given a talk together before. It's always like me watching him or him championing me. So
Right.
we really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Right, of course. Thank you both.